Welcome back to the workshop. This time we'll focus on breaking up chords into arpeggios and on learning a new rhythm, triplets. We'll start by going back to our first chord progression, only this time we'll be playing it in arpeggios. So remember our nugget about arpeggios, which was this. Any chord you can play can be broken up and played as an arpeggio in a variety of rhythms and with a variable order of notes or in variable patterns. So before we start breaking up those chords to the first chord progression, let's review that progression. Remember, it sounded like this. And then remember, the minor version of it sounded like this. So we're going to break up both these progressions into arpeggios, starting with the major part of it. So this chord is now going to be played in this pattern. The bass note hits first, while the right hand rests for half a beat, and then the right hand fills in the chord. So the pattern sounds like this. And then when we switch to the other chord, we use the same pattern. So let's try that very slowly together. 1, 2, 3, 4. When we get to the minor version, we use the same pattern, so it'll sound like this. So let's try that one together. 1, 2, 3, 4. So now we're going to make a little song out of these two progressions broken up into arpeggios. We'll play the major part of it twice, and then the minor part of it once, and then go back to the major part of it. So the whole thing up to tempo will sound like this. I'll play it first, and then we'll play it together at a slower tempo. This is what it'll sound like when you're finished with it. Now let's review our old school arpeggio progression, and before doing so, let's review the triplet rhythm that we use in the progression. Here's a written representation of triplets, and you'll notice on the screen that it's 3 eighth notes beamed with a 3 on top. This is the way we write triplets. Also, other than eighth note triplets, there's quarter note triplets and half note triplets and so on. So back to our old school arpeggio progression. First, we'll review the chord shapes and the fingers that we use in the 4 chords of that progression. first chord is C, and the C is doubled at the octave, and we have E and G in between. The next chord is A minor. Again, the C is doubled at the octave, and we have E and A in between. Next chord is F, with the C doubled at the octave and F and A in between. And then we take that whole thing up one step to G, so we have D at the octave and G and B in between. Now we're breaking those up into triplet arpeggios so they sound like this. So playing this arpeggio stretched out this way with the C doubled at the octave is going to be a little bit tricky for some of you with smaller hands. And at the end of this segment, I'll show you a different way of playing this exercise and this progression that uses less of a stretch, in case you can't play that comfortably. But try to play it even if it's a stretch. So now let's set our metronomes to 56. And we'll play those triplets slowly up and down on each chord 2 times. So on C we'll have this: 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we go to A minor and do the same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then to F, playing it the same way. 2, 3, 4. And then we're to G, playing it the same way. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now this time we want to add the left hand, and we're going to play the chords up and down that way and go to the downbeat of the next chord, the downbeat of each chord change. So it'll sound like this. So we're practicing making that chord change as well as moving that triplet up and down. So the first one will be from C to the downbeat of A minor, so it'll sound like this. Now we're going to connect A minor to F, and it'll sound like this. 2, 3, 4. Now we're going to go from F to the downbeat of the G chord. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now from G to the downbeat of the C chord. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now the progression repeats in the same way, and when we get to the end of it the second time, the ending is slightly different. We have what's called a cadence. And you'll remember that cadences are chord progressions that bring us a sense of a section ending. So let's isolate that cadence that's at the end of the second time through that progression. It sounds like this. And remember, this time when we play the G, it's in a different inversion than the first time through. This time we're playing it like this. Before we played it like this. So now let's play the whole 8-bar sequence all the way through with the cadence at the end, and we're still on 56 beats a minute. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now for the more advanced portion of this exercise, let's take the tempo up to 62 beats a minute. And remember, don't do this until you can play it at the slower tempo. So with the faster tempo, it'll sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. So some of you with smaller hands might have a hard time reaching that octave on the outside with the arpeggio in the middle. So here's another way to play that old school progression. We'll play the bass note first, and then play the chord in the right hand in triplets. So it sounds like this. It's the same chords, only we just leave off that note on top, making it easier to play the triad than it was to play that whole chord with the octave on top. So here's that whole progression played this way. 1, 2, 3, 4. Cadence. Now let's get our fingers moving digitally with an F major scale. First we'll learn the two shapes to the scale, which are this shape, F, G, A, and B flat, with fingers 1, 2, 3, 4. And then this shape, C, D, E, and F, again with fingers 1, 2, 3, 4. So an F major scale can be broken down into these two shapes, this one and this one. Now if we're playing the scale 2 octaves, then instead of playing 1, 2, 3, 4 on this second shape, we'll play 1, 2, 3 on this shape, and then put the thumb under and start the pattern again. So let's try that F major scale 1 octave slowly. 1, 2, 3, 4. And pay special attention to that crossover when you're coming down. Crossing the 4th finger over the thumb to the B flat. And once again, if we were playing it in 2 octaves, instead of playing the 4th finger on that higher F, we'd put the thumb under there to continue playing the scale on the 2nd octave. So let's try playing the F major scale in quarter notes, 1 octave. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're going to play that F major scale up 2 octaves. And before we play it along with the metronome, make sure that you can play through it and make all those crossovers smoothly. Especially that one going from the thumb to the 4th finger. And again from the thumb going to the 4th finger. So we'll lower the metronome to 66 beats a minute and play this thing for 2 octaves in eighth notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now before moving on, let's play that scale in the left hand. We won't worry so much about metronome markings or playing it for 2 octaves. But let's check out the shapes of the scale in the left hand, starting with these 5 notes: F, G, A, B flat, and C, making this big old shape down here. And then we have D, E, and F. So these 2 shapes, these 5 and these 3, so that when you play them individually, you'll have in the crossover, cross under with the thumb. So let's play that slowly in quarter notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, as a workshop bonus, let's learn another arpeggiated progression, this one in D minor. We'll be using the chords D minor with the D doubled up an octave and the chord in root position on D minor, and then C major, again with the C major in root position and the C doubled up an octave, and then B flat major with a B flat major triad and the B flat doubled up at the octave, and then an A major triad with the A doubled up at the octave. We're going to break it up into triplet arpeggios the same way we did our old school arpeggio progression. So it'll sound like this. Only instead of going up, as we did in that progression, we'll be going down on the D minor chord. And then the same thing on the C minor chord. And then B flat, and then A, and then a half note on A before we start again. And the bass notes will follow the roots of all those chords, so it'll sound like this. Back where we started. So before we play that progression with the metronome, let's make sure we have the shapes of all those chords along with the left hand bass notes. We have D minor, and then we have C, and then we have B flat, and then we have A. So let's try it with the metronome at 56 beats a minute. 1, 2, 3, 4. Play the progression again. And let's resolve it to a D minor chord. So when we get to that last arpeggio on the A, we'll resolve to a D minor chord in second inversion. So let's try playing that progression with that D minor chord at the end. So the last part of the progression will sound like this. And the D minor chord. So the metronome's at 60 beats a minute, and we're going to play this progression and end on that D minor chord. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we play it again. D minor chord. So that does it for workshop 12, and you're ready to move on when you can play the first chord progression and the first minor chord progression as arpeggios, and you can play both progressions combined to form the first chord progression arpeggiated. Also, when you can play the old school arpeggios, and when you can play the F major scale in the right hand 2 octaves up and down with slow and even eighth notes, and when you can play that F major scale for 1 octave in the left hand slowly. Remember to practice all this stuff at tempos where you can play them evenly, relaxed, with good fingering, and with a feeling of pulse. This will give you a sense of mastery and make playing a lot more rewarding and fun. I'll see you in the next session.